There are places that define elegance in the simplest ways, and Tuscany is one of them. A region where the landscape speaks softly, yet leaves a lasting impression. Stretching across central Italy, its hills, fortified town, and agricultural valleys create a geographical identity that feels both measured and timeless. Florence stands at the center of it all, an urban archive of masterpieces where Renaissance principles still guide architecture, sculpture, and daily life. South of the city, Val d'Orcia reveals a different perspective. Broad, symmetrical landforms shaped by centuries of cultivation, and rural roads marked by distinct rows of cypress. In Chianti, the commitment to disciplined winemaking is unmistakable, each vineyard demonstrating a balance between method, soil, and long-standing tradition. And in Pisa, the iconic Leaning Tower represents an enduring lesson in structural history, its inclination now preserved with meticulous engineering. A surprising fact for many travelers, Tuscany manages one of the world's most diverse olive ecosystems, with over 1,500 recorded varieties contributing to its signature oils. Rural farmhouses, carefully restored to maintain their original character, offer a setting where the quiet of the countryside becomes part of the travel experience. Here, the value of the journey lies in observation, in understanding how culture and landscape continue to shape each other over time. Join the journey and discover Tuscany with a new perspective, presented in clear, detailed 4K. Florence Cathedral. Florence Cathedral doesn't just mark the city center, it redefines it, rising with a scale so immense that Brunelleschi's dome feels less like a roof and more like a declaration of what human ambition can achieve. Inside that dome, the climb through narrow passageways reveals alternating layers of space and engineering, offering glimpses of the city grid and the Tuscan landscape that unfolds far beyond its medieval walls. The facade's tri-colored marble, precise, geometric, and meticulously restored, serves as a visual record of Florence's evolving identity, mirroring the city's shift from Gothic devotion to Renaissance clarity. Under the dome, the Last Judgment frescoes surround visitors with a vortex of color and symbolism, their scale echoing the theological and artistic debates that once shaped Florence's intellectual life. Below ground, the archaeological remains connect the cathedral to Florence's earlier topography, where Roman foundations still anchor the city's spiritual core. Giotto's campanile stands beside it like a vertical counterpoint, lighter, more measured, offering an ascent that reveals how seamlessly the Duomo integrates with the city's tightly knit urban plan. Steps away, the baptistery's bronze doors bridge myth, craft, and civic pride, their panels capturing a moment when artistic mastery became a defining element of Florentine identity. And as evening settles, the cathedral complex turns luminous, not simply illuminated but transformed, its marble absorbing the last light as if the building itself is preparing to tell another chapter of Florence's story. Palazzo Vecchio. Palazzo Vecchio dominates Florence's civic center like a stone chronicle, its walls, battlements, and towering silhouette revealing how the city defended both its power and its identity through the centuries. Inside the immense Salone dei Cinquecento, the scale alone conveys authority, while the long-vanished works of Michelangelo and Leonardo linger as a reminder of the artistic competition once fueled by political ambition. Ascending the fortress-like tower offers a commanding sense of Florence's geography, where the city's medieval grid meets the sweep of the Arno Valley and the unmistakable curve of Brunelleschi's dome. Deep within the structure lies Francesco I's studiolo, a secluded chamber where science, mythology, and hidden iconography merge into a private world of Medici intellect and secrecy. Vasari's courtyard invites a quieter pause, its gold-toned frescoes and refined dolphin fountain forming a transitional space between the palace's military exterior and its artistic heart. Beneath the foundations, the outlines of a Roman theater surface like a buried map, exposing Florence's earlier layers long before the rise of the Renaissance. And when night settles over Piazza della Signoria, Palazzo Vecchio shifts from fortress to beacon, glowing above a square alive with movement, music, and the energy of a city that never truly stops telling its story. Monticello. Set on a ridge overlooking the iconic curves of Val d'Orcia, Monticello stands as a quiet sentinel, its stone walls and terraced fields forming one of the region's most striking hilltop silhouettes. Within the village's narrow lanes, you'll find family-run spaces where culinary traditions, woodcraft, and local agriculture blend seamlessly into daily life, best explored during late afternoon when shadows soften the streets. For an unforgettable meal, try handmade pizza with truffles at Osteria La Porta, ideally reserved for golden hour when the sun drops behind the rolling fields and lights the valley in warm gradients. Montichiello's identity also lives through the Teatro Povero, where residents collaborate each summer to stage performances rooted in local memory and the social fabric of rural Tuscany. Step inside the Romanesque church of Santi Leonardo e Cristoforo, whose understated architecture and cool stone interior offer a quiet contrast to the open, luminous landscapes outside. Walking along the old defensive walls reveals sweeping vistas of vineyards, olive groves, and distant villages, an excellent location for panoramic photography, especially on clear mornings. With its proximity to Pienza and Montepulciano, Montichiello serves as both a peaceful retreat and a strategic base for exploring the broader Val d'Orcia, without the crowds that often gather in nearby towns. Florence. Florence is a city where the Renaissance never truly ended. Its riverbanks, hilltop viewpoints, and marble landmarks still echo the ambition that once reshaped Europe. Inside the Accademia Gallery, Michelangelo's David stands not only as a masterpiece, but as a symbol of civic pride, carved from a single block of Tuscan marble once considered unusable. For a sweeping grasp of the city's geography, head to Piazzale Michelangelo at sunset, where the Arno reflects the shifting sky and Florence stretches out in layered shades of terracotta. At the Uffizi, Botticelli and Da Vinci reveal how art, science, and philosophy converged here, turning Florence into the intellectual capital of the early Renaissance. Crossing the Ponte Vecchio feels like stepping into a preserved chapter of history, with jewelry shops perched above the water just as they were before the Medici closed the bridge to butchers centuries ago. In the Santo Spirito district, small trattorias serve dishes shaped by local produce and rural traditions, ribollita and Chianti offering a taste of Tuscany's agricultural roots. Climbing Brunelleschi's dome provides not just a view, but a lesson in innovation. The structure's double shell remains one of the most extraordinary engineering feats of the 15th century. And in Oltrarno, where workshops glow with the light of goldsmiths and leather artisans, Florence's craftsmanship survives in the hands of those who refuse to let the old ways fade. Lucca. Lucca impresses from the very first glance, with its Renaissance walls forming a green, elevated ring that doubles as one of Tuscany's most scenic walking and cycling routes, perfect for sunrise when the city is still quiet. Climb the Torre Guinighi for a rare blend of architecture and nature, where centuries-old oak trees rise above the rooftops and offer a clear line of sight toward the Apuan Alps on crisp days. At Piazza dell'Anfiteatro, the unusual oval shape reveals its Roman origins, making it an excellent spot for wide-angle photos and people-watching in the early evening. The Cathedral of San Martino stands out not just for its marble patterns, but for housing the Volto Santo, a pilgrimage relic that gives context to Lucca's deep spiritual roots. If you're visiting in September, plan ahead for the Luminara di Santa Croce, when the entire city glows under thousands of candles, a once-a-year spectacle best viewed from the quieter side streets. For an authentic meal, look for small trattorias away from the main piazzas. Many serve handmade tordelli lucchesi, a comforting pasta dish rarely found outside the region. Music lovers can step inside historic churches, hosting intimate opera recitals, an atmospheric way to experience Puccini's legacy without the crowds of major opera houses. And thanks to Lucca's central location, you can easily pair your stay with day trips to Pisa or the Versilia coast before returning to the city's peaceful, tree-lined walls at dusk. Siena. Siena unfolds across a series of steep hills, its medieval street plan and preserved fortifications revealing a city that once defended its independence with remarkable resilience. Inside the Siena Cathedral, the interplay of black and white marble, carved facades, and Renaissance frescoes testifies to the city's long pursuit of artistic prestige in the face of regional rivalries. Climbing the Torre del Mangia offers a striking lesson in geography. Siena's neighborhoods radiate from Piazza del Campo like spokes, surrounded by rolling farmland that has shaped local life for centuries. For an authentic taste of the region, try pizzi al ragù or wild boar sauce in a family-run osteria. Pair it with rosso di Montalcino if you prefer something lighter than Brunello. Santa Maria della Scala provides one of Tuscany's most compelling historical sites, where underground chapels, frescoed corridors, and ancient storerooms trace the evolution of one of Europe's first public hospitals. At the Basilica of San Domenico, the austere interior and relics of St. Catherine highlight the city's deep spiritual heritage and its influence far beyond Tuscany. Exploring the contrade districts gives travelers a clearer sense of Siena's social fabric, each neighborhood's emblem, fountain, and meeting hall preserving traditions tied to the Palio. As the last light crosses Piazza del Campo, choose the upper terraces on the square's western side for the best view of the illuminated Palazzo Pubblico, a quiet, atmospheric way to end a day in Siena. Pitigliano. Pitigliano rises sharply from volcanic cliffs like a natural sculpture shaped by fire and time, its golden tufa blending so seamlessly with the rock that the entire town appears to grow from the earth itself. Inside the Renaissance-era Orsini Palace, frescoed halls and fortified terraces reveal how noble families once controlled this rugged terrain, while the nearby Porta della Cittadella Bridge offers the best vantage point for photographing Pitigliano's dramatic skyline at sunset. The historic Jewish quarter unfolds through narrow stone passages, where a 16th century synagogue and centuries-old workshops reflect the long coexistence between Jewish and Tuscan communities. Try sfratto de goyim, a honey and walnut pastry layered with cultural meaning, once tied to painful history, now embraced as one of the town's most distinctive treats. Explore the enigmatic Valle Cave, sunken Etruscan roads carved deep into the rock, where towering moss-coated walls create a canyon-like passage that feels suspended between archaeology and myth. Relax at a cliffside terrace as Pitigliano's DOC white wines catch the evening light, with views stretching toward valleys dotted with thermal springs. If you visit in September, the Torsiata Festival brings the town alive with torchlit processions and medieval rituals, an immersive experience best enjoyed from the main square. For a stay that mirrors the town's geological identity, choose a boutique hotel carved directly into the Tufa cliffs, where ancient stone arches frame modern, understated comfort. Monteriggioni. Monteriggioni appears on the horizon as a perfectly circular fortress, a rare medieval stronghold that still mirrors the strategic thinking of the Sienese Republic at its military height. Tracing the top of its walls, you'll see how the village commands the slopes of Chianti, an ideal lookout where terraced vineyards, winding dirt roads, and distant farmhouses unfold in wide cinematic layers. Viewed from below, its evenly spaced towers echo the disciplined geometry of 13th century defenses, a visual rhythm that later inspired Dante's comparison to sentinels guarding ancient realms. For a clearer sense of the region's turbulent past, step into the Monteriggioni and Arm Museum, where chainmail, crossbows, and siege models reveal the tactics used in Siena-Florence border skirmishes. Inside the quiet piazzas, try a board of aged pecorino, local salumi, and bruschetta drizzled with Chianti olive oil, simple flavors that showcase the agricultural richness surrounding the fort. If your visit coincides with July, arrive early for the medieval festival, when reenactors, artisans, and musicians transform the village into a fully immersive historical set. Pause at the Romanesque Church of Santa Maria Assunta, where minimal ornamentation and cool stone walls reflect the restrained spirituality of a frontier community. For the best experience, time your visit for late afternoon. The sun backlights the towers, photographers gather along the main gate, and the road back towards Siena reveals rolling hills at their most luminous. Arno River. The Arno River winds through Tuscany like a natural corridor, revealing shifting landscapes from forested slopes near the Apennines to the broad, sunlit plains near Pisa. Walk the Lungarno during the golden hour, when the river reflects soft amber tones and offers some of the best photography conditions in Florence without the usual crowds. On the Ponte Vecchio, pause midway and look upstream. This often overlooked angle captures a rare alignment of bridges framed by the Arno's gentle curves. For a slower, scenic approach to Tuscany, consider a boat ride downriver toward Pisa, drifting past vineyards, riverside farm, and villages that few visitors explore on foot. At sunrise, set up near the banks opposite Santa Croce. This spot provides one of the clearest mirror-like reflections before morning traffic disturbs the water. In Oltrarno, turn off the main streets and follow the smaller lanes. Here, artisan studios cluster close to the river, and many welcome visitors for brief demonstrations. As the Arno approaches Pisa, walk along the south bank for cleaner sightlines of Palazzo Blu and the medieval bridges, ideal for travelers seeking quieter, more authentic views. If visiting in May, join the modern version of Festa del Grillo, where riverside events highlight local culture and sustainability, far less touristy than Florence's major festivals. And at night, choose the stretch near Ponte Santa Trinita, where the interplay of reflections and soft lighting makes the Arno one of Tuscany's most atmospheric riverside strolls. Pisa. Pisa reveals itself as more than a city with a tilted tower. Its skyline reflects centuries of maritime power, scientific thought, and architectural experimentation that shaped the Western Mediterranean. In the monumental zone north of the city, the pristine lawns and pale marble facades of the cathedral complex demonstrate how Pisa once projected both wealth and spiritual authority. For a more intimate perspective, leave the main avenues and explore the older districts near Borgo Stretto, where medieval arches, artisan bookstores, and quiet cafes show everyday Pisan life at a slower rhythm. Along the Arno, the river's gentle bends create natural viewing points. Sunset from the Ponte di Mezzo offers one of the best angles for photographing the reflective palazzos. Seek out Pisa's traditional flavors in neighborhood eateries. Order warm cecina with black pepper or local game dishes paired with a Tuscan red for a deeper taste of regional cuisine. At the National Museum of San Matteo, carefully curated sculptures and painted panels reveal how Pisa's medieval workshops once influenced artistic production across the coastline. Walking the elevated medieval walls gives travelers a broad geographic sense of the city, with views stretching from the historic core to the distant Apuan Alps. And the true charm of Pisa emerges when you explore slowly, lingering in cloisters, along riverbanks, or in student-filled piazzas, where each space adds a new layer to the city's long, complex story. Maremma. Maremma opens with a landscape defined by raw contrasts. Volcanic ridges, wide coastal plains, and Mediterranean scrub forming the backdrop to one of Tuscany's most untouched regions. Your journey begins in the Maremma Natural Park, where vast meadows, tidal marshes, and quiet forests create a habitat so pristine that herds of wild horses and rare birds move through it with little trace. Farther north, Populonia rises above the Gulf of Barati, its Etruscan furnaces and hillside necropolis offering a rare archaeological vantage point over waters that shift from pale green to deep turquoise. Continuing toward the coast, Monte Argentario reveals sculpted granite coves accessible by narrow paths, each leading to a different pocket of emerald-colored sea shielded by towering cliffs. Deeper inland, the cuisine becomes notably rustic. Slow-cooked game, handmade pastas, and dishes seasoned with wild herbs reflecting centuries of rural tradition and self-sufficiency. Villages such as Pitigliano and Sovana appear as if carved directly from the tufa cliffs they occupy, their alleyways holding traces of medieval life and older pre-Roman origins. Crossing the open fields, you'll eventually meet the Buteri, Maremma's legendary horseman, whose work with long-horned cattle preserves one of Italy's oldest pastoral cultures. And as the route concludes, the region's defining character emerges, a sequence of landscapes and settlements that feel ancient, layered, and quietly mysterious, an unexpected counterpart to Tuscany's more polished icons. Elba Island. Elba Island presents a rare blend of imperial history and island wilderness, where Napoleon's brief exile is only one chapter in a landscape shaped by granite cliffs, sheltered coves, and ancient maritime trade routes. Along Sansone Beach, the mix of smooth white pebbles and clear turquoise water makes it ideal for snorkeling. Head there before midday when the light creates the most vibrant underwater visibility. At Villa dei Mulini, the former imperial residence, terraced viewpoints and restored interiors offer insight into Napoleon's strategic use of Elba's geography for observation and escape planning. Driving the island's panoramic ridge roads reveals a coastline carved by wind and time, with hidden beaches like Fetavaya providing calm, shallow waters perfect for relaxed swimming in late afternoon. Elba's cuisine reflects centuries of seafaring tradition. Try aliatico alongside grilled octopus or ricotta drizzled with island honey to experience the depth of its volcanic terroir. For unmatched scenery, ascend Monte Capan via hiking trail or cable car. On clear days, the summit delivers sweeping views over the Tuscan archipelago and even the distant outline of Corsica. In Portoferraio, pastel houses, Medici fortifications, and seafood trattorias form a harbor front that rewards slow exploration, especially during the quieter hours just after sunset. Plan your visit around April's wildflower bloom, when coastal paths erupt in orchids and poppies, turning simple nature walks into some of the island's most memorable experiences. Turn di Saturnia. Saturnia reveals itself gradually, first as a faint warmth rising from the ground, then as a hush in the air, as if the landscape is holding on to something ancient. Cascate del Mulino appears just beyond a bend in the road, its terraces shaped by flowing mineral water that settles into soft blue pools as effortlessly as breath. The steady 37 degrees Celsius stream speaks to the site's long lineage, carrying the same volcanic minerals once prized by Etruscans for both healing and ceremony. Not far away, the thermal resort interprets the tradition in a modern way, layering geological knowledge into treatments that feel grounded rather than ornamental. Following the Gorello River leads to quieter spots, where warm currents gather in natural bowls of stone and the sound of water does most of the talking. Olive trees frame the hills in muted green, their trunks twisted by time, lending the springs a sense of continuity that goes deeper than history books can explain. Meals here tend to reflect the landscape: simply prepared seafood, pastas shaped by hand, and cheeses aged slowly in local cellars. And when dusk settles, the pools release thin trails of steam that drift into the fading light, creating a moment that feels less like a scene and more like a pause in time. Cortona. Cortona rises along the ridge with a quiet confidence. Positioned so high above the countryside that the landscape below, olive terraces, patchwork fields, and the mirror-like surface of Lake Trasimeno, feels like part of its natural domain. As you move upward through its steep stone alleys, medieval thresholds and hand-forged lanterns appear between glimpses of inner courtyards, revealing how the town still folds everyday life into ancient architecture. The Mayek Museum deepens Cortona's sense of continuity, preserving objects that trace its identity from early Etruscan settlements through centuries of cultural transition. Above it all stands the Girifalco Fortress, its 16th century defenses oriented toward the Valdichiana plain, offering a view that clarifies why this height mattered in both strategy and symbolism. In Piazza della Repubblica, the town's social pulse becomes unmistakable, conversations rising and fading, music weaving through the air, and the square acting as a meeting place for generations. Cortona's cuisine reflects the land beneath it, with dishes like pappardelle al cinghiale and chianina beef expressing the depth and character of the region's forests and pastures. Along the Cardinale Passerini walkway, rosemary hedges and quiet benches line the old walls, creating a space where the scenery feels intentionally framed for contemplation. And as the town moves between its ancient Etruscan roots and its modern literary fame, Cortona demonstrates how history and atmosphere can merge into a single, enduring sense of place. San Gimignano. San Gimignano rises along a commanding ridge in Tuscany, its remaining towers forming one of the most complete visual records of medieval urban power in Italy. The town's compact network of stone lanes reveals centuries of incremental growth, where merchant houses, artisan workshops, and civic buildings were shaped by the rivalries of powerful families. From Torre Grossa, the highest surviving tower, the structure of the surrounding countryside becomes clear. Vineyards arranged in long geometric patterns, olive groves following ancient property lines, and distant hills defining the Elza Valley. Piazza della Cisterna stands at the core of the settlement, a triangular medieval square whose well-preserved facades reflect the town's prosperity during its commercial peak. Inside the collegiate church, richly pigmented fresco cycles chart narrative and stylistic changes across centuries, offering insight into the region's evolving religious and artistic priorities. San Gimignano's long-standing winemaking tradition is embodied in Vernaccia, a white varietal whose mineral profile reflects the sandstone soils of the surrounding terrain. At the San Gimignano 1300 Museum, the detailed reconstruction of the medieval skyline provides a rare spatial understanding of how dozens of towers once functioned as symbols of status and defense. Stepping beyond the walls near sunset, the town's profile appears in sharp silhouette against the rolling Tuscan landscape, underscoring why its skyline remains one of the most distinctive in Italy. Montalcino. Montalcino does not simply sit on a hill, it occupies the entire horizon, a long spine of stone and vineyard carved into the volcanic slopes as if placed there with deliberate intent. Long before Brunello became a name known worldwide, the fortress watched over the valley, its towers measuring distance, its walls absorbing centuries of wind and shifting alliances. Step inside the town, and the atmosphere tightens. Cool alleyways, sudden openings to the sky, and cellars descending so far into the rock that the air changes texture. In these dim caverns, Brunello matures slowly, the scent of oak and earth blending into something that feels as much geological as it is human. A single painting in the Museo di Montalcino, glinting gold leaf, an austere Madonna, reminds you that devotion once shaped this place as strongly as wine ever did. Out on the ridge path, the terrain becomes a map of time, terraces carved by Etruscans, olive groves anchored to soil laced with ash from ancient eruptions. By late summer, the hills vibrate with the quiet expectancy of harvest, the sweetness of Sangiovese rising invisibly in the warm air. And when evening arrives, the whole town seems to withdraw into silhouette, fortress, vineyards, stone streets, leaving only a sense that Montalcino guards secrets it reveals slowly and never all at once. Ponte Vecchio. Instead of announcing itself with grandeur, Ponte Vecchio simply appears as part of Florence's daily rhythm, an inhabited crossing where life, craft, and history blend into something uniquely its own. The workshops that cling to its sides feel more like long-standing guardians than storefronts, continuing the goldsmithing legacy imposed by the Medici to elevate the bridge's cultural stature. Look upstream, and the Arno widens into a calm stretch, where the interplay of water and architecture reveals how closely the city and the river depend on one another. Above the pedestrian bustle, the Vasari corridor moves in a quiet parallel world, an elevated path that once granted rulers privacy while offering discreet vantage points over the city. Step off the eastern end, and the bridge's dense energy dissolves into narrow lanes, where artisans shape metal, leather, and wood using techniques refined over centuries. As the afternoon deepens, the surface of the stone shifts in tone, holding on to warmth even as the river below begins to cool. Its survival through conflict, particularly the wartime destruction that erased Florence's other bridges, gives Ponte Vecchio a resilience that is rarely addressed yet always felt. And when you pause there after sunset, with only the muted glow from the shops above and the soft movement of the Arno below, the bridge feels less like a destination and more like a moment suspended between centuries. Montepulciano. Montepulciano rises along its ridge like a long amber-colored spine, offering wide, cinematic views over vineyards that roll toward the Apennines in soft, layered waves. Along the Corso, Renaissance facades conceal cool, vaulted cellars where the town's winemaking families have shaped the character of Vino Nobile for centuries. At Piazza Grande, the architectural dialogue between the Palazzo Comunale and the cathedral creates a stage-like atmosphere that explains why filmmakers return here again and again. Step into a small tasting room and the wine tells its own story. Vino Nobile, showing depth and structure when balanced with the nutty sharpness of aged Pecorino. The old fortezza, once positioned for defense, now functions as a peaceful lookout, its grassy terraces framing panoramic views of the Val di Chiana. Below the town, San Biagio stands in luminous solitude, its golden travertine catching the last light and reflecting a purity of Renaissance design rarely preserved so completely. During August's Bravio delle Botti, the calm streets transform into a living arena as teams push heavy barrels uphill, reviving centuries-old rivalries with impressive endurance. And through each of these layers, Etruscan foundations, Renaissance ambition, and a wine culture refined with patience, Montepulciano draws visitors into a Tuscany that feels both timeless and intensely alive. Monte Argentario. Monte Argentario reveals itself slowly, first as a shadow on the horizon, then as a rugged peninsula whose cliffs suggest a place that prefers to be discovered rather than announced. In Porto Ercole, the harbor looks unassuming by daylight, but when the sun dips, the shifting reflections and quiet movements of returning boats hint at an older rhythm still pulsing beneath the surface. Venilia stretches between land and sea like a natural threshold, its dunes breathing out the scent of juniper, while rare seabirds slip through the reeds with a stealth that feels almost ritualistic. Along the western cliffs, the trails cling to the rock in improbable lines, offering glimpses of distant islands that appear, vanish, and reappear, as if the sea itself were rearranging the horizon. The Spanish fortresses above remain stern and angular, their weathered bastions suggesting that this coastline has long been a stage for tensions history never fully recorded. And when night finally settles, Monte Argentario does not quiet. It deepens. The sea darkens to ink, the air thickens with salt and possibility, and the whole headland feels like a place that only reveals its truth to those willing to stand still long enough to hear it. Arezzo. Arezzo extends across its 4 hills with an understated elegance, revealing a city shaped by ancient origins yet untouched by the rush that defines Tuscany's more crowded destinations. Piazza Grande, with its asymmetrical slope and layered architecture, transforms each month during the Antiques Fair into a vibrant open-air archive where objects from many eras resurface. Inside the Basilica of San Francesco, Piero della Francesca's frescoes command the space with luminous precision, unfolding the legend of the true cross in a sequence of scenes that feel both timeless and meticulously studied. Along Via dei Pigliati, master goldsmiths continue techniques rooted in Etruscan craftsmanship, their workshops offering a rare glimpse into a tradition sustained through centuries of refinement. The remains of the Roman amphitheater curve around a modern program of summer performances, creating a stage where antiquity and contemporary opera coexist under evening skies. Arezzo's cuisine reflects its terrain. Wild boar simmered with herbs from the surrounding hills, fresh pastas shaped by hand, and olive oils pressed from groves that have anchored local agriculture for generations. As twilight settles, Corso Italia becomes a social thread through the city, with residents strolling past boutiques and cafes that speak to both heritage and quiet modernity. And through its Etruscan roots, Renaissance brilliance, and everyday rhythms, Arezzo offers a layered portrait of Tuscany, complex, cultivated, and compelling in ways that reveal themselves gradually. Chianti. Chianti occupies a geological corridor between Florence and Siena. Its vineyards planted along slopes shaped by marl, clay, and ancient marine sediments. The black rooster seal signals a protected zone whose viticultural roots predate Roman consolidation, drawing influence from early Etruscan agriculture. Graves Market Square forms a natural basin where regional trade once converged, a tradition preserved today through artisanal foods and olive oil producers. High above, Castello di Broglio reflects centuries of territorial conflict and innovation, its estate serving as a living laboratory during Ricasoli's formulation of the Chianti blend. The Strada del Vino reveals how microclimates shift from ridge to valley, each estate adapting architecture and cultivation to the contours of the land. Badia Apasignano sustains monastic agricultural patterns that contributed to the earliest documentation of Sangiovese. Cyclists navigating the backroads trace historical routes once used for moving livestock and produce across the region. And as evening settles, the mosaic of vineyards and forests forms a landscape where natural history and human craft appear seamlessly intertwined. San Quirico d'Orsia. Behind its fortified walls, San Quirico d'Orsia reveals a curated balance of quiet lanes, intimate stone courtyards, and fountains softened by age and weather. Horti Leonini presents a rare example of Renaissance garden design with its crisp lines, measured harmony, and enduring sense of order. The collegiate church adds architectural weight, its Romanesque portal enriched by carvings that speak to the sophistication of medieval craftsmanship. Along Via Dante, studios keep the tradition of Tuscan majolica alive, producing ceramics whose pigments echo the colors of the surrounding valley. At dusk, the panorama from the ramparts becomes a masterclass in natural composition, fields ignited by sunlight, distant hills painted in lavender tones. Val d'Orcia. The Val d'Orcia forms a distinctive geomorphological basin, its rolling hills molded by erosion, sediment, and centuries of purposeful cultivation. Pienza represents a Renaissance reimagining of urban design, in direct contrast to Montalcino's defensive medieval patterning. The SR-146 traverses a sequence of elevated viewpoints, each revealing the region's characteristic alignment of cypress avenues, terraced fields, and ridged horizons. At Casifizio Cugusi, Pecorino production reflects a layered heritage rooted in pastoralism, local grasses, and centuries of agricultural adaptation. Sant'Antimo Abbey, constructed of alabaster-rich stone, glows at dawn with the same luminosity that once guided monastic rituals. Bagno Vignoni's thermal pools, fed by deep geological fissures, continue a bathing tradition that predates Roman infrastructure. On the shepherd's paths, the interplay of shadow and terrain offers a precise reading of the valley's topography. Through every historical layer, Etruscan, Roman, monastic, Renaissance, The Val d'Orcia stands as a rare landscape where cultural identity and natural form remain inseparable. Sorano. Sorano occupies its dramatic cliffside with a rare architectural unity, its medieval dwellings integrating seamlessly with the natural geometry of volcanic tufa. The Orsini Fortress, perched at the town's highest point, offers a commanding perspective over the cultivated plains and the Lente River's verdant corridor. Below, the Etruscan Valle Cave form a sophisticated network of carved passageways, illustrating an ancient mastery of stone shaping and landscape adaptation. Cuisine here reflects the depth of the territory: succulent wild boar, rustic handmade pizzi, and the structured Savana DOC reds that complement the region's bold flavors. As dusk arrives, the cliffs absorb the fading light, casting Sorano in warm tonal gradations that elevate the town's already striking silhouette. Pienza. Pienza comes into view with a gentle coherence, its Renaissance layout giving the impression of a town that understands its place in the landscape. Inside the cathedral, sunlight filters through tall windows, revealing colors and contours that shift quietly throughout the morning. On Via del Cazio, the earthy scent of aging pecorino drifts into the street, a reminder of how closely the town's rhythms remain tied to its countryside. Palazzo Piccolomini's garden opens like a breath, ordered hedges, quiet pathways, and the wide valley unfolding just beyond the stone balustrade. At dawn, the world below is muted under a veil of mist, allowing the viewer to feel momentarily suspended between town and sky. Ancient cheese caves beneath the surface echo with the coolness of the rock, holding traditions that have survived countless generations. Via dell'Amore offers a softer pause, where flowers spill over railings and the town seems to slow its steps. With the arrival of the Fiera del Caccio, Pienza shifts into a festive rhythm, weaving celebrations seamlessly into its refined character. Senesi. The Senesi represents a rare Tuscan landscape shaped by ancient marine sediments, its rolling clay formations forming one of Europe's most recognizable badlands. In Asciano, medieval street patterns still guide daily life, drawing visitors toward bakeries whose breads and pecorino reflect centuries of local craftsmanship. From the surrounding clay rises the Abbey of Monte Oliveto Maggiore, its Renaissance frescoes documenting monastic history within a setting defined by geologic austerity. Each autumn, San Giovanni d'Asso reasserts its truffle heritage, sourcing white truffles from oak groves that have sustained this tradition for generations. The region's Strade Bianche cut clean lines through the hills, offering uninterrupted views that illustrate the relationship between erosion, cultivation, and open sky.